Before you even think about a 50-year mortgage, watch this video. The numbers don't do what you think they do. There's been a lot of talk lately about a 50-year mortgage. Is that a good thing? Is that better than a 30-year mortgage? Why is this important? My barber Mo and I were having this conversation just this week. By the end of the conversation, Mo told me that I needed to make this video to help educate prospective buyers. So shout out to Mo, and if you're in the Brickell area and need a barber, go see him. I'll leave his Instagram info in the description. So here goes. My goal isn't to tell you if it's good or bad. Instead, I want to give you the tools and information to help you make your own decisions. And the best way to do that is to show you. But before I do, let me introduce myself. My name is James in Miami. I'm a local Miami realtor focusing on Brickell and its surrounding areas. If you need help or have questions, feel free to reach out. And if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So at face value, let's say we have a $400,000 mortgage at 6% over 30 years. That means we have a monthly mortgage payment of around $2,400. Let's keep it simple. I'm only talking about the mortgage, not taxes, insurance, down payments, or anything like that. I want to focus on how this works without all the other distractions. So $400,000 at 6% for 30 years is roughly $2,400 a month. So naturally, when we say let's make the mortgage term 50 years instead of 30, in our minds, we sort of either half everything or double everything. Yes, 50 years isn't the same as 2 times 30, but in our minds, for estimation purposes, it is. So if our payment was $2,400 with a 30-year mortgage, we'll estimate that it'll be around $1,200 with a 50-year mortgage. For that matter, if we're considering a $400,000 house, well, if we're talking about a 50-year mortgage, then naturally we can afford a $800,000 house, right? We double our purchasing power. On paper, it's a simple solution. This will bring down monthly housing payments, make it easier for people to buy homes. But is that really what happens? I think you'll find the results interesting. There's a free mortgage calculator tool online. It's been there for several years, so it's not something new because of the 50-year mortgage conversation. I'll make sure I put a link in the description. So let's do it together. We have a $400,000 house, 0 down payment, loan amount $400,000, no taxes, no insurance, no nothing. Yes, all those things have an impact, but for now, I want to keep everything as simple as possible so you can see the effect of increasing the term from 30 years to 50 years. I'm also setting the start date to January 2026, which will make things simpler to see as the years progress. There you have it. It shows a monthly payment of $2,398.20. For practical purposes, $2,400. So let's change the term from 30 years to 50 years. We're expecting that monthly payment to be cut in half to $1,200 or so, right? No. At 50 years, the monthly mortgage is $2,105.62, or roughly $2,100. So we're only talking about a savings of about $300 a month. So what about the purchasing power? Okay, maybe it isn't double, but surely we'll be able to get a $600,000 home for the same monthly mortgage payment, right? No, not even close. If we want to keep the monthly payments close to the original $2,400 a month with the 50-year mortgage, you would be able to purchase a $455,000 home. So yes, you do have some additional purchasing power, but not as much as you expected. But let's dive into the numbers and see how all of this really works. In all of these scenarios, we're talking about fully amortized loans. In simple terms, that means more interest is paid at the beginning of the loan and less interest is paid at the end of the loan. The amortized one is front-loaded, and that concept will be important as we dig into the numbers. A good rule of thumb for a 30-year mortgage is whatever the purchase price is, you'll also pay that in interest. It's not a perfect calculation, but you'll see what I mean. We had a $400,000 loan for 30 years. The total interest paid over the life of that loan is $463,352. Okay, so $400 purchase price, more or less $400,000 in interest paid over the life of the loan. So that home you purchased for $400,000 actually cost you $863,000 over 30 years. So let's move over to the 50-year mortgage. Again, the purchase price is $400,000. The interest over the life of the loan is $863,000, pretty much twice the purchase price. So that $400,000 home cost you $1.2 million over the course of that loan. But that doesn't even tell the whole story. Okay, yes, we understand that we have to pay interest on our mortgage. So yes, we understand that every time we make a payment, it all doesn't go toward the principal. But how much did go toward the principal? With a 30-year mortgage, at the end of the first year, we have a remaining balance of approximately $395,000. So that means we only paid down $5,000. That doesn't sound like a great deal, and you're right. Remember that amortized loans are all front-loaded, so we pay the most in interest the first year. If we move out to the 5-year mark, what does that look like? Okay, now you owe $365,000, which means you have about $35,000 in equity. And we're only considering the $400,000 purchase price. We're not considering any sort of price appreciation. Now let's take a look at the 50-year mortgage. After 1 year, you still have a balance of nearly $399,000. That means you paid down less than $1,500 on your loan. Let's look at the 5-year mark. You have a $390,000 balance, which means you only have $10,000 in equity. So why is that important? On a 30-year mortgage, your monthly payment was $2,400 a month. On a 50-year mortgage, your monthly payment was $2,100 a month. With a 50-year mortgage, you save about $300 a month or $3,600 a year. But how much is that costing you? At the end of the first year with the 30-year mortgage, you paid $3,600 more in monthly payments. But you ended the year with $5,000 in equity. With the 50-year mortgage, you saved $3,600, but only ended the year with $1,400 in equity. So whatever you saved during the year in monthly payments, you lost in equity. Or the other way around, whatever more you paid during the year on the 30-year mortgage, you kept in equity. This only gets worse as time goes on. Remember that the first year is the most that you'll ever pay in interest. So with the 30-year mortgage, the worst year for interest, you essentially offset those expenses paid throughout the year by increasing your equity. Now let's compare the 5-year numbers. At 5 years with a 30-year mortgage, you end the year with $35,000 in equity. At 5 years with a 50-year mortgage, you end the year with $10,000 in equity. Over that 5-year period with the 30-year mortgage, you will have paid an additional $18,000 or $300 a month for 60 months. So conversely, with the 50-year mortgage, you will have saved $18,000 over the course of the 5 years. But you're also down $25,000 in equity as compared to the 30-year mortgage. So considering human tendencies, you saved $300 per month with the 50-year mortgage. But then you probably spent that extra $300 on whatever. You probably didn't put that into some sort of investment vehicle. At the end of 5 years, while you saved $18,000, you would still have a net loss of $7,000 in equity. This will continue to get worse at every interval. You have the tools now. Run through the numbers yourself. Run through different scenarios. I want to show you something else that's very important between these two loan periods. On the 30-year mortgage, notice that the trend line is pretty straight for the first 15 years or so. Then it curves downward a bit more. That curve is important. That curve shows us when we're starting to pay down more on principal than on interest. Until that point, you're paying more on interest than on principal. Again, these are amortized loans that are front-loaded. You will always start off paying more in interest than on principal. This is also why it's not always a good idea to do a cash-out refinance. It essentially restarts the loan and increases your interest payments. But that's a topic for another video. Let's look at the 50-year trend. Look at how much longer you're paying interest. That extra 20 years of mortgage is essentially spent on interest. So let's talk about how this works in real life. People tend to outgrow their homes in 5 years or so. On a 30-year mortgage, you'll likely have $35,000 in equity built up, which gives you some options. Maybe you want to use some of that money as a down payment for a larger home. After 5 years with a 50-year mortgage, you'll have about $10,000 or so in equity, which means your options may be more limited. What you may not know is that it costs money to sell a home. The seller is responsible for realtor fees, which tend to be about 6 or 7% of the purchase price. So when you sell your home at $400,000 as a seller, you'll be responsible for roughly $24,000 in realtor fees. But with a 50-year mortgage, you only have $10,000 in equity. So if you sold the home at $400,000, you'd be upside down in that transaction, meaning that you would lose money by selling the home. And yes, this is a simplified scenario. It does not take into consideration price appreciation. On average, housing prices increase 3 to 6% per year. So perhaps you'd be able to sell the home for $450,000 to $480,000 after 5 years. But then again, there are no guarantees. What if you couldn't sell at that price? What if you could only get $400,000 for it? I'd rather plan for the worst and hope for the best instead of the other way around. At the end of the day, I believe there is a place in the market for a 50-year mortgage, but you need to understand the pros and cons. Generally speaking, purchasing a home is a good investment. If a 50-year mortgage is what it takes for you to get into that investment, then perhaps it's the right tool for you. Just remember that you'll be leveraging more risk and debt. This will also put you on the hook for a longer period of time while saving just a few $100s month over month. And you will pay significantly more on interest over the term of the loan. I see the 50-year mortgage, if it were to come to fruition, to be more of a tool to help someone get into a deal as opposed to becoming the norm or standard. Or at least, I guess that's my hope. I would expect people to refinance these 50-year mortgages into shorter terms. I don't see anyone holding on to 50-year mortgages for the entire duration. For the average individual, the 30-year mortgage should still be adequate, especially if interest rates drop. At the end of the day, it depends on your level of comfort with debt. You will have more debt for a longer period of time on a 50-year mortgage, and during that time, you will maintain a lower level of equity. If you're someone that's going to offset that month-over-month savings through other investment vehicles, then this may be a great tool for you. But for probably the majority of people, they won't do that. There's significantly more leverage and risk on a 50-year mortgage when considering it only saves a few $100s month over month as compared to a 30-year mortgage. Also, don't forget that Trump floated the idea of a 50-year mortgage. He was also a real estate developer and investor. Investors would use the 50-year mortgage solely as a tool to get into a deal. For the most part, they wouldn't use this type of loan the same way that normal buyers would. I hope this helped. If you have any other questions, real estate or otherwise, please leave them in the comments. Until next time.